Some of the videos I've been watching, there's not a lot out there. There's discussions though, like typed theories about, where people think Ellie uh, went to at the end of The Last of Us Part 2. Because we know Dina, depending, I guess, on how long Ellie's been gone, we know that she left. She took JJ with her. Dina probably thought Ellie was dead, possibly. But, and a lot of people feel like because of where Tommy's horse was, that it was, people thought maybe Tommy and Jackson location is located near, I want to say, the right hand side of the house where the barn is at, like as like a main driveway. And everybody's like, well, where's Ellie going? Because she didn't go towards the right, she went towards where she came in from. And I think, both of those paths, realistically, if you look at it, you usually have like one driveway. You may have two entries to your house, to get to where you're going, and they probably both lead in the same direction. But if you truly looks like there's like a valley down there, right? Pretty much like empty land as well, if you will. But you may not want to be seen out in the open like that, regardless, traveling in that world. So I think it makes sense, right, for, when Tommy visited, to take the main path with the other gate that leads to the front of the house, out there in the wheat field, right? To me, it makes sense. Now, we know that I think Ellie and Dana lived at the house for like a year. I'm surprised they didn't try to haul a grainer, a wheat harvester, because wheat can be, is one of the ingredients to make bread. I mean, think about that. You can fucking make bread, right? And you can have yourself a good hustle, a good trade out in the apocalypse. You know what I'm saying? You can have yourself a good damn hustle and a trade out in the apocalypse with that. But a lot of people, feel like, she probably went to several different places. The main one, people's like, oh, she went back to Jackson. A lot of people don't think so, but a lot of people do. I think, realistically, she went back to Jackson. And I will discuss, when it, like I talked about on my gaming channel, that I will also share here on TikTok, on what I would personally like to see life, or not life, The Last of Us 3 really be about. But I feel like she went back to Jackson, personally, myself, because it makes sense. B, the second option would be, a lot of people may think she may have went back to Santa Barbara, which would make no fucking sense. She let Abby go. Cool. Abby let her go. I don't think they want to run into each other right now again for a while. I don't. 3, there's that chance, and I don't know if because from what I gather, it seems, once you play part 2, a lot of the QZs are ran down, abandoned on the Fedra soldiers ain't around anymore. But 3, which is very unlikely and very low, she may have went back to Boston, to where we first met her at in part 1, at the QZ. I don't know. I doubt it. It doesn't make sense because there's nobody there for her. And the fourth one, which is maybe, no, I'm going to say 50-50, or maybe 50-30, that she may have went to Texas, Dallas, Texas, to where Joel's story first began at, as it were, and to get closure, to get that final goodbye. But we got that final goodbye, that closure for her when she put the guitar down. I don't know, maybe she would like to actually see, maybe to get, I don't know, man, it just really won't make sense. I'm leaning towards that very low 30% chance of why would she even go down to Texas, to Dallas in the first place. It doesn't make sense. So it would be, no, it would be really low likely for her to do that. Story wise, it doesn't make sense. But then we get the fifth one, which is her going somewhere completely new. But the reason would be why? You know, why? Jeez, it's again, I'm gonna leave that like a 15% chance of that happening. Granted, in that world, like you could travel anywhere, but it's dangerous though, because there's more infected than there is less humans, it feels like. But the humans that are left, they no longer want to be civilized people and just crazy group of cults that like to slaughter others, from what we all see and gather. I like this little mod that I saw when it came to Ellie, and it takes place in Liberty City, GTA 4. Her getting off a bus, and of course it's like really modded and AI'd voice. You know, I'm not going to quote it for verbatim, but it was like after Santa Barbara and the whole Abby business, I decided after Dana decided to leave me, and me not really caring too much about her and her Ice Age looking junior, I decided to leave and head out to Liberty City to start a new life after she took off with all my chicken nuggets, and I'm here to get all new tasty chicken nuggets. So because of that, a lot of people think she may have went up to the East Coast to New York. That would be interesting. But why? You know, it would be interesting. It would. It would be very interesting. But I think she went back to Jackson. Now, I believe the story is going to definitely focus on several aspects. And I think the main part of the message is forgiveness. You know, forgiveness to oneself, forgiveness to those who you feel like who done you wrong. Be able to let go and get that closure, which leads me into the idea of what I think The Last of Us 3 could be about. Now, this is a bit rough draft, okay? This ain't nothing polished. It's not even official, but I feel like it would be great. So we could, in the first part of the game, we would play as Ellie for a while, right? We would play as Ellie. And it would pick up with her leaving the farm on her journey to Jackson. As she's making her journey to Jackson, she's out there surviving, trying to find supplies, crafting weapons, which I want to bring into this. I don't want to see any more guns in it. If you want to take a realistic approach, bullets and ammunition like that, I don't think would be around for 25 years. Maybe 5 to 10 at the most. If you did keep bullets around for that long, because you got to keep in mind, a lot of people would go to the gun stores, break into cases and everything, pawn shops, kill people for ammunition. But if you want to stretch it out to that next 10 years, which would be 20 plus another 5, which would make 25 years, if you want to keep bullets around like that, realistically, yes, you can recycle and cast bullets from what you fire, but you can only do that for so long until they start to jam up your firearm and blow it up from the inside. The same thing when it comes to the gun cleaning supplies. That's only going to last for so long. Parts, how we're able to upgrade. You got to think about stuff, the elements of the outside world and inside of buildings when temperatures are no longer around and stuff too. So when it comes to parts, a lot of stuff does rust, because you got to think about, the climate change with cold, hot, warm, rain, snow, even when buildings that start to decay over time because, not being able to keep up with maintenance work and the outside elements going in, the salt in the air, salt from water. So, I think steer away from that in the third one and focus on hand-to-hand combat, melee weapons, and bows and crossbows, just for that specifically, and upgrading those specific things and skills, and knife combat as well. But I feel like as we're making our way to Jackson, Ellie, we're playing as a flashback, right? Her finally coming to realization and things, and her mindset of that, revenge never solved anything. Revenge only caused more violence to get more violence to add to more violence. And at the end, both sides ended up losing regardless. And she's going also on her own spiritual closed journey as well, and even throw in the Bible in there and have her to where she has a Bible, and her finding religion, finding faith. We get this moment of this breakdown with her once she finally gets to Jackson to say, I forgave myself. And she says, throughout her journey back here, she ended up finding redemption, or to hope to find even more redemption. She found forgiveness without even looking for it, and hoping that Tommy and Dana forgive her. And they just have this moment, she just have this moment of breakdown. And they gather around her, they hug her, they say, we were never mad. We forgive you. And she tells them, at the end, me and Abby both realized it wasn't worth it, so we let each other go. And she tells them, how the fight went down, which involves her losing her fingers and stuff like that. So we really get that, and she's her and Dana get a house of their own, within Jackson, and which cuts into another scene to the next part of the game, which we switch over and play as Abby, where we play as her trying to find help, and the only person she can think of that will hope to help her is Ellie. Now, I think it's going to have it be to where, I need to get help. I need help retrieving one or two things. Levi, from either he got kidnapped because it's rumored that we're going to get a new group of people, of 5 people that are in this group who are dangerous. So one, either they kidnapped Levi, or 2, they killed him. And I think as we're making this journey, it's going to be a mere parallel to Ellie's story, but with Abby. And her coming to also same realization like I talked about. And once she gets to Jackson, it's not going to be a warm welcome, but she's going to have this look in these tears like, I need y'all's help. And it's like, okay, so they bring out a group of people like, look, we just need to detain you for a bit and we'll talk. And I feel like we're going to get this huge, emotional, on your edge seat, cinematic scene between Gabby, Ellie, Dana, and Tommy. Right? And she's going to explain why she needs their help. And she just breaks down. And she's like, you don't have to forgive me, but I'm hoping that you will. And to move on from this. But right now I need you guys' help either receiving Levi from these group of people who either kidnapped him or killed him. And they'll be like, well, that's not our problem. Why'd you come to us? Right? And I think this is where we get like a reveal that, over the several years that passed, Abby, Ellie, Dana, Tommy, along with Joel's past as well coming back into play, that they all made a lot of enemies over the years, that once certain groups died off, those who survived, found another group of people, and that this group of people are a ragtag group of people who are of past groups from the enemies that, again, Abby, Ellie, Dana, Tommy, and Joel made, that are now out for revenge and headed towards Jackson next to destroy it. So now this involves all of them, which we know Tommy can no longer fight. He's, out of commission. So because of this, at this point, Dana is put in this position like, shit, I'm a mother. I can't go out and fight, but this involves me and enemies that are out because of the people who we crossed. Then, she has to think, I'm a mother. I'm going to have to go out there and fight to not just protect Jackson, but also make sure her son has a life as well, right? And then we get this silent face-to-face moment with we get this silent face-to-face moment alone with Abby and Ellie, and they both hug each other as a sign of, I forgive you. Let's, and also have it be a sign of them burying the hatchet and knowing that it's going to be an interesting team up. It's going to be an interesting team up, which will lead us to our third part of the game, where we get to play as another character of this new thread of this group. So now we get to switch playing as, I guess you could say, the villain, which would be interesting. And, doing things as them, which would lead to the point of us either kidnapping or killing Levi. And on the hunt for our, I guess you could say, our heroes, our main antagonists, as it were. And then eventually, in the last part of the story, Jackson's prepared, on alert 24/7. We switch, we get to play as two different characters back to back, need be, which would be Ellie and Abby, which would be all-out war, in one place, which would be Jackson. Which would be Jackson, and I think the women and children would definitely be evacuated to a safe zone area, and we just get this all-out brutal war. And at the end, Jackson's in ruins. Some have fallen on our side, but a lot has fallen on the enemy side as well. And I think during this part, this is where we get several things that can happen. And I think a lot of people are probably going to hate me for this decision. I think a lot of people are going to hate me for it. But I think in the end it's going to make sense. Which is going to tie back around to what Ellie said in part 2, that she was supposed to die and her life was supposed to matter in that sense. Alright. Good. Trying to get across. So the last part I think a lot of y'all are gonna hate me for is gonna be this. Right? Going back to what I said, have it to be Ellie is badly hurt in the fight and she dies, right? She dies. Ellie, dies, and as she's dying, Dana and Abby rush over to her and have it to be where Abby's holding Ellie in her arms. And during that moment, or we cut to maybe several days later during the rebuild of Jackson, and Abby and Ellie are over at Abby and Dana are over at Ellie's grave. Abby and Dana have a moment of understanding and forgiveness. In that Abby has found out the location that, where Levi's at, right? Where he is at. And I think it would probably make sense, now that I think about it, for him to be alive but held at a private location. And have it to be it was in Wyoming, where they kept him the whole time. So we play as Abby for the full final part of her finding Levi. She finds Levi and he's alive, and we get that cutscene, the cinematic cutscene of them talking and her telling them everything, right? And she takes him to visit Ellie's grave to show, to give his, respects to her, and have it be at the end, her life mattered, especially with her sacrifice and dying, to where Dana, Tommy, and the residents of Jackson, as they're rebuilding, accept Abby and Levi to say, hey, we're going to accept you as one of our own. Come and stay here. There's a place for you. And we just have it to where, Levi is playing with a toddler, JJ, and both Dana and Abby are sitting on the porch together watching the kids play and sipping coffee. I think that would make sense.